Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping right into a topic that, well, it affects almost everyone's closet and probably their wallet too. The global fast fashion market.
It's a huge one.
Absolutely. And our mission, really, is to unpack its incredible growth, but maybe more interestingly, dig into some pretty surprising regional trends.
Right.
We want to ask, where are the new power players popping up? And, what does that actually mean for fashion worldwide?
Good questions.
And we're basing all this on some fantastic research from cognitive market research.
Lit data.
So let's maybe set the scene first with the big global numbers. Back in 2021, this market was already worth a massive $111.246 billion.
Wow.
And get this, it's projected to climb to $163.112 billion by 2025. But then it really surges to an amazing $350.664 billion by 2033.
That's quite a jump, almost tripling.
Exactly, essentially tripling in just over 10 years. That works out to a really strong compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of 10.04%. And that CAGR, just to remind everyone, is kind of like the steady average annual growth needed to get from that starting point to the end point. It smooths things out, gives a clear picture of just how powerful this expansion is.
Yeah, and it's crucial to remember these aren't just, abstract figures.
Right.
They actually point to some really big, fast shifts in how people shop, industry dynamics all over the world.
Okay.
It shows this powerful ongoing trend where getting affordable, trendy clothes is really shaping economies and how we consume things globally. It's that whole fast fashion idea in action trends, hitting stores super quick, making style affordable for, well, almost everyone.
That's a really key point. Okay, so let's zoom in a bit. How about we start with North America? Sales there were pretty significant. $45.166 billion in 2021.
Yeah, a big chunk.
And they're projected to grow to an impressive $137.483 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR of 9.736%. Now, obviously, the U.S. dominates there. But what else is interesting within that region?
Well, this is where it gets quite interesting, actually. While the U.S. is, the giant expected to top $106 billion by 2033.
Right.
The real acceleration story within North America seems to be happening in Canada, and maybe even more so in Mexico. Yeah, Canada's growing at a pretty solid 10.53% CAGR, but Mexico, it's outpacing both, growing at an impressive 11.387% CAGR.
Wow, okay.
So that tells us that beyond the huge U.S. market, Canada and especially Mexico are really speeding up. Maybe new retailers moving in, maybe a younger crowd really embracing online shopping, or just, consumer tastes changing fast to match global trends.
That's fascinating. A real acceleration story there. But, okay, the wall is big. What about across the Atlantic? Europe, long seen as a fashion center. How's fast fashion expanding there?
Europe's interesting, too. The market there was about $28.59 billion in 2021.
Yeah.
And it's expected to hit around $87.198 billion by 2033. That's a 9.827% CAGR overall.
Streets.
Yeah, steady growth in the big players like Germany, UK, France. But the real surprise, kind of the hidden gem in this data, is the rest of Europe category.
Rest of Europe. What's in that?
So countries outside those traditional big three, this group started at about $4 billion in 2021.
Right.
But it's projected to shoot up to over $15.22 billion by 2033. And get this, its AGR is the highest in Europe, a really amazing 12.016%.
12%? Wow.
Yeah, it suggests a really dynamic, fast-growing scene in those emerging European markets, maybe driven by, rising incomes, better digital connection in places that weren't so saturated before.
Yeah, it's definitely a key area to watch. Let's move over to Asia Pacific now, another massive market, obviously. Sales were $23.362 billion in 2021, forecasted to reach $77.146 billion by 2033, with a strong CGR of 10.421%. China leads the way there, of course, but what's the bigger picture?
Well, if you look at the bigger picture, yes, China's huge and growing fast, about 10.3% CAGR, but the really impressive momentum is also in other countries, and that gives us deeper insight.
Like where?
Like India, for example. It's projected to hit over $8.4 billion by 2033, growing at a very strong 11.144% CAGR.
Okay, India's nooming.
And Taiwan, too, showing remarkable growth at nearly 11.3% CAGR.
Interesting.
So it shows this broad, accelerating adoption across the whole region, not just China. You see how local e-commerce giants and just widespread smartphones are making fashion accessible, often straight from makers to buyers. It speeds up trends like crazy and creates new fashion hubs, beyond the usual suspects.
Right, democratizing fashion access. Okay, next up, South America. This region had sales of $5.006 billion in 2021.
Smaller start, relatively.
Yeah, but expected to jump to $15.276 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR of 9.957%.
Yeah.
Brazil's the biggest market there.
Oh, yeah.
What does this growth tell us about the continent?
Well, Brazil is definitely large, but look beyond that. Both Argentina and Colombia are showing really impressive double-digit CAGRs.
Oh, yeah.
Argentina at about 10.2% and Colombia even higher at 10.7%. This really highlights, growing consumer demand right across different South American economies. It suggests a rising middle class, maybe a strong cultural link to fashion, plus just more availability of affordable, trendy stuff, often thanks to online platforms getting around old retail hurdles.
Makes sense. Okay, let's shift now to the Middle East. Sales were $4.672 billion in 2021, projected to reach $15.818 billion in 2033 at a healthy CAGR of 10.67%. That growth, especially seeing it in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, seems really compelling. Is it just about more money to spend, or is there something else like a cultural shift or retail changing fast?
That's a great question. And yeah, countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE are definitely leading the charge there. Their CAGRs are high, 11.24% for Saudi Arabia, 11.1% for the UAE.
Very strong.
And it does signal more than just rising incomes. Critically, it shows a strong consumer desire for global fashion trends, probably fueled by, tons of internet access and social media influence.
Right, the social media effect.
Exactly. It's about lifestyles changing quickly, people wanting instant access to global looks, and maybe it even signals a bigger economic shift, moving away from traditional industries towards more consumer-focused economies.
Interesting angle.
Yep.
Okay, finally, let's talk Africa. Now, this market was $4.45 billion in 2021, but it's projected to absolutely explode to $17.743 billion by 2033. And this is the kicker, it claims, the highest continental CAGR of all. 11.456%.
That is remarkable. The highest overall.
What on earth is driving such an incredible rise across the continent?
Well, this is maybe the most surprising fact in the whole data set, I think. Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Yes, it's projected to hit an astounding $8.751 billion by 2033. That's up from just over $2 billion in 2021, and its CAGR is incredible, 12.064%.
12%, that's huge.
It really is. It makes Nigeria a real powerhouse of growth right alongside South Africa, which also has a strong CAGR of about 11.8%.
Wow.
These numbers point to a massive economic and cultural shift happening. You've got this huge young population, rapid urbanization, more and more smartphones, and this booming e-commerce scene that just leaps over the old limitations of physical stores. It puts global fashion right at people's fingertips.
Incredible. So, okay, let's try and wrap our heads around all this. We've seen the sheer scale of growth projected everywhere, every single region showing strong expansion.
Yep, solid growth across the board.
And many of them, especially these emerging markets we talked about, hitting really impressive double-digit CAGRs.
Exactly. And that rapid surge, especially in places like Nigeria, over 12%, CAGR India at over 11%, that rest of Europe category also over 12%, it really signals a deep change in global consumption patterns and economic development.
It's more than just clothes, then.
Oh, absolutely. It's about shifting economies, the power of digital access, getting things to people, and just widespread participation in global trends. It's almost like a democratization of fashion happening on a massive scale.
And that right there is really what we try to do here on the Deep Dive. Give you that shortcut to understanding complex market data and what it really means without you having to sift through everything yourself.
Hopefully making sense of the big picture.
Exactly. So considering these really dramatic growth projections, especially in those super high growth spots like Nigeria, India, and the rest of Europe, here's something to think about. How do you think the future of fashion itself will adapt to this incredibly rapid expansion? And maybe what new innovations or even cultural influences might start coming out of these high growth regions around the globe?